ಅಡಿಸಿದಳ ಯಶೋದ ಜಗಗೋ ಅಡಿಸಿದಳ ಯಶೋದ ಜಗಗೋ
राम जय राम जय जय राम ओम श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम ओम
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम ओम श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम ओम
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम ओम श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम ओम
ओम श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम
मगतो मगी मना अनोदगी मगतो मगी मना अप्रमेयना अडिदिन यशोदा यशोदा अडिसिदಳ ಯಶೋದ ಅಡಿಸಿದಳ ಯಶೋದ ಯಶೋದ.
First of all, we will go through the lyrics. Toraman Darpan. Your mind is the mirror. That reflects both good and bad. It watches the flow and reveals to all. Mind is verily God, mind is all powerful, there is nothing higher than the mind. Whenever mind is illumined, the world seems full of light. On this illumined mirror of mind, O man, let not dirt ever settle. Be it blossoms of pleasure or thorns of pain, mind is the basis of everything. You can hide nothing from the mind, for it has got 1,000 eyes. Maybe you can run away from the world, but from the mind, never. Your mind is the mirror. Yesterday we were elaborately discussing about the relevance of mind, how the mind is to be treated as an asset. We should never denigrate, belittle the importance of the mind. If the mind is not given to us, how will we know about the higher form of life, higher realm of life? So we add one more, no? 3 days back we found so many organs, so many functionings are going on inside our body. But this mind has got a special mission to perform. Whatever may be the other organs performing, it is the mind that says, I am happy, I am not happy. The mind interprets in total disregard to the fact. It will be there, but how does my mind interpret? Just think about it. 2-3 days back we were discussing about the bhakti. What a role the mind plays there. In Saguna Bhakti and Nirguna Bhakti. Though Papa is giving importance for the Parabhakti which I mentioned, never Papa has belittled the importance of Saguna Bhakti. Because when we cross over that, initially we all start with bhakti towards a deity. And then that the deity, because of the sincerity or the intensity, the deity by itself help us to transcend. That is what we have seen in Papa's life. He was a great devotee of Lord Krishna. In his Purvashram days, he has written he used to go and sit for the bhajan in his elder brother's house. And later on, when the indwelling Lord guided him from stage to stage, but at the same time, one day when he closed his eyes, he had the vision of Lord Krishna. Immediately, he was able to say, I want that. I should not be limited to your form. I want your form that abides in me at every time. What you have explained in the 10th or 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So from this, it is the mind. So nothing is irrelevant, nothing is unimportant, nothing is insignificant. That we have to keep on bringing into our mind. Even in Narada Bhakti Sutra, though the Parabhakti is highlighted, he makes a mention about the ordinary forms of worship. Like, puja, archana. Elaborately doing seva to the form of the Guru, in the form of Abhishek, changing the dress, waving the arati, offering Naivedya. And these things have got relevance. But ultimately I should reach, the first lesson is being given to us through the deity. Because we have got a name and form, we need a name and form to start with. And even after the same deity, God who is first drawing us through a deity, He is watching us about the equipment. And at the right time, He gives us the right direction, Now you go beyond the form also. Not the form is annihilated. You go beyond the form also. And later on from that, when we start getting experience, we will come to realize that both are same or both are relevant. Both convey the same. Initially we thought, we were limiting the all-pervading reality to a particular form. With the result, we were not able to see His presence in anything. But later on, after hearing that 15th chapter, when we came to know that there are only three things: me, the worshipper, the bhakta, He, the Lord, and rest of the things are articles of worship. Where do I learn this? When I was a child, when I saw the puja being done, we are doing the puja to the deity with Shraddha, with devotion, and so many requisites are there. We bring it, do it. Previously it was limited to one deity, limited to that simple preparation or preparatory acts. And later on, when the spiritual preceptor says don't limit there, the same Lord is there in everybody. So your now attempt is to identify the same Lord with that form or without that form. There are many Bhaktotamas we have heard, To them they attain through the form. But they saw it in everybody. They saw the deity in everybody. It was a 24/7 bhakti. That is Parabhakti. Everywhere. In this connection, we thought it would be most appropriate to read the Saguna Nirguna aspect of Vinobaji.
ಅಡಿಸಿದಳ ಯಶೋದ ಯಶೋದ ಅಡಿಸಿದಳ ಯಶೋದ ಜಗದೋಧಾರಣ
He has beautifully brought it out. This discussion of bhakti is going to be completed in 12th chapter. Arjuna has asked a question here, which is similar to what he had asked in the 5th chapter. Some devotees worship you in Saguna form, while others worship you in Nirguna form. Whom do you like more? What answer could the Lord give? It is just like asking a mother having two sons, whom do you love more? The younger son is a little child, deeply attached to his mother. He is happy only in her company and is restive if she is out of sight, even for a moment. He cannot bear separation from her. Without her, the world is like a big void for him. The elder son too is full of love for the mother, but he is grown up and mature. He can stay away from her. He serves her and takes all the burden and responsibility upon himself. Being absorbed in work, he can endure separation from her. He is admired by the world and his reputation pleases his mother. If you tell this mother that she can have only one of these two sons and she will have to choose between them, what could she do? How can she make a choice? Try to understand her plight. She will be totally nonplussed and may mumble. I can bear separation from the elder one if I cannot help it. It is more difficult for her to tear away the younger son from her bosom. His special attachment to her will weigh with her and she may reply accordingly, but it cannot be said to be the real answer to the question as to which of the two sons is dearer to her. She will reply, if she must, But it would not be proper to take her words literally. The Lord has been put exactly in the same predicament. Arjuna asked the Lord, "O Lord, one of the two devotees love you madly. His mind is riveted on you. His eyes long to see you. His ears are eager to hear your praise. His hands yearn to serve and worship you. The other one is self-reliant. He has controlled all his senses and is ever absorbed in working for the well-being of all. Engaged in selfless service of the society day and night, he does not even seem to remember you. He has realized oneness with the entire creation. Out of these two, whom do you love more?" The Lord has replied exactly like the mother. He says, "I love the former, Saguna Bhakta, and the latter too is mine." I love the former, Saguna Bhakta, and the latter too is mine. The Lord is clearly on the horns of a dilemma. He has somehow given a reply just for the sake of replying. In fact, there is absolutely no difference between these two types of devotees. Both have equal merit. To compare the two is to transgress the limit of propriety. The question that Arjuna had asked in the fifth chapter about karma has been asked here about bhakti. The question of choice between Saguna and Nirguna is similar. The Saguna devotee serves the Lord through his organs, whereas the Nirguna devotee thinks of the good of the whole world. The former appears absorbed in outward service, but his mind is absorbed in the contemplation of the Lord. The latter does not appear to be rendering any concrete service, but is certainly rendering a great service from within. Which one of these two devotees is superior? These two types of devotees may appear outwardly different, but they are intrinsically one and the same. Both of them are dear to the Lord. But Saguna Bhakti is easier. In the yoga of Saguna Bhakti, all the organs can be directly employed. They could be either a help or a hindrance or both. For the Saguna devotee, they are the means. They are like flowers that are to be offered to the Lord. With his eyes he beholds his form. With his ears he listens to his praise and his edifying stories. With his mouth he chants his name. He uses his legs for pilgrimage and hands to render service. In this way, he dedicates all the organs of perception and action to the Lord. For him, they are no longer the means of enjoyment. The flowers are there to be offered to the Lord. One should not put garland around one's own neck. Likewise, the organ should be used in the service of the Lord. This is the outlook of the Saguna devotee. But to a Nirguna devotee, they appear to be a hindrance. He restrains them, starves them, keeps a watch over them. The Saguna devotee feels no need to do so. He surrenders them at the feet of the Lord. Both these are methods of controlling the organs. Whatever be the way, it is imperative to restrain them and prevent them from valuing in the pleasures of the senses. But one way is easier, while the other one is difficult. With Saguna devotee, we should be very clear. Though we may be also going to temples and we may be doing some traditional form of seva at home. Do we qualify to become the Saguna devotee mentioned here? All our organs are dedicated to him. Whereas in the Nirguna also the same thing, Can we say that we are dedicating for 5 minutes or 10 minutes at home or a few minutes in a temple? Rest of the time there is no dedication of God, there is no remembrance of God. So we now start thinking whether the Saguna devotee as brought out by Vinobaji, and we also feel we are devotees, Do we become that? When we offer, do we keep on reminding us that this is offering at all points of time, at every moment of my life it should be like this? When I look at the deity, it should be like that. That is why in the ashram, at the end of the arati, we say, Jajyastali he manajaya maje, Chatyastali he nijarupa tuje, Meete vido mastakata tikani, te tuje, Sadguru paya. Do we maintain that? Wherever I see, So if I take the deity worship as a stepping stone for reminding, it is 100% valid. But what are we doing? We just have to reflect. Nirguna devotee is dedicated to the good of all. This is no ordinary thing. It is easier said than done. One who is absorbed in thinking about the good of the whole world can do nothing else. Hence, Nirguna sadhana is difficult. Saguna worship on the one hand can be done by anybody according to his capacity. To serve the small village we are born in or to look after our parents is a form of Saguna worship. Such service should of course not go against the interest of the world. That is very important. No matter how small your service is, it will have the character of bhakti if it does not go against the good of others. That means Lord is not limited, indirectly it is not limited to that particular object of worship. What we do during the non-puja time matters much, even at the time of doing puja. The Saguna worship consists of serving the parents, the friends, the distressed people, the saints, considering them as forms of the Lord, and is content therein. Hence, although both Saguna and Nirguna are essentially the same, Saguna is preferable on the ground of relative easiness. Apart from the point of easiness, there is one more point. Nirguna worship is fraught with some risk. Nirguna is all jnana. But Saguna is full of love and tenderness and the warmth of feelings. A devotee is more secure therein. There was a time when I relied much on knowledge, but experience has taught me that knowledge alone is not enough. It does not burn down gross impurities in the mind, but is powerless to wash away subtler impurities. Self-reliance, inquiry into the nature of the self, discrimination between the self and the not-self, Abhyasa and Vairagya, all these means taken together are of little avail here. The subtle impurities can be washed away only by the waters of bhakti. Only bhakti has the efficacy to do it. You may call it dependence, but it is dependence on nobody else but the Lord. The mind cannot be completely cleansed without His help. Yesterday, again, Papa himself said, all austerities that we do, japa, tapa, everything, it has got its relevance only if it has got the stamp of bhakti in it. If God remembrance is not there, the other one becomes an austerity, that's all. It may have some limited positive influence on our system, that's all. But if it is not supported by God remembrance, dedication to God, if the devotional aspect is not there. So, Vinobaji is warning us, we should be very careful. That's why he said it's a risky one. It's fraught with some risk. And later on he will say both are same. Some may say you are giving a narrow meaning to the word knowledge. To hold that knowledge cannot cleanse the mind completely is to undervalue it. This is certainly a valid objection. But my point is that it is hard to attain pure knowledge while encased in the mortal body. The knowledge that we can have while we are in this body is bound to be somewhat imperfect and incomplete. Its power is bound to be limited. Pure knowledge will undoubtedly burn to ashes all the impurities, and along with it will burn down the mind itself. But when associated with the weak flesh, its power proves to be inadequate. It cannot therefore wash away subtle impurities. One has to take recourse to bhakti for this purpose. A man is therefore more secure in bhakti. This is my personal assessment. Saguna bhakti is easier, as there is reliance on the Lord, whereas the nirguna bhakti there is self-reliance. But after all, what does self in self-reliance means? It means reliance on the Lord that dwells within us. You cannot find anybody purified solely through reason, through self-reliance, that is through knowledge of the self, capital S. We shall have pure knowledge. Thus even in the self-reliance of the nirguna bhakti, reliance is on the self. I mentioned easiness and security as two plus points of saguna worship. I can mention a few plus points in nirguna worship also. In nirguna, one remains within limits. To take an example, we establish institutions to undertake various kinds of service. Initially, an individual establishes an institution. He is its main pillar. Everything revolves around him. But as the institution grows, it should not remain dependent on a single individual. It should then be guided by principles. Otherwise, decline is bound to set in soon after the departure of that individual. To take my favorite illustration, one cannot continue spinning when the belt of the spinning wheel snaps, nor can then one wind up the yarn already spun. This is what happens to the institution when it loses the key person. It as it were becomes orphaned. This would not happen if the institution advances from devotedness to an individual to devotion to principles. Saguna is initially towards an individual, but then it should help us to graduate to the principles. Saguna needs help from nirguna. One must eventually learn to free oneself from attachment to and preoccupation with individuals and outer forms. The Ganga emerges from the Himalayas, from the locks of Lord Shiva, but she does not linger there. Leaving the support behind, she flows through the hills and the forests to the plains and thus benefits the people. In the same way, an institution should be ready to adopt principles as its mainstay in the eventuality of losing the support of the key individual. While constructing an arch, support is given to it, but the support has to be withdrawn later. If the arch remains firmly in place after the support is removed, the support can be said to have done its work. Saguna is indeed the source of inspiration, but the ultimate culmination must be in nirguna, in commitment to principles. Self-knowledge must ultimately emerge from the womb of devotion. The plant of bhakti must blossom into the flower of self-knowledge. There is image worship, and in some form or other in all the religions. As long as it remains within the bounds set by nirguna, it remains free from defects. As soon as it crosses these bounds, defects appear in it.
Sugunantarangana, Param Purushana, Param Purushana, Param Purushana.
In all religions, Saguna therein has degenerated in the absence of restraint from Nirguna. Saguna is secure and easy, but it needs Nirguna. Saguna should in fact grow and eventually blossom into Nirguna, into devotion to principles. Nirguna and Saguna are not opposed to each other. In fact, they are complementary. One must advance from Saguna to Nirguna. Nirguna also needs the warmth of Saguna to remove subtle impurities from the mind. They thus enrich and gain lustre from each other. We are skipping many portions.
Yashoda Ardindana Yashoda Jagadodharana
In Saguna worship, a stone image is looked upon as a symbol of God. But it is in the mother and in the saints that divine consciousness is clearly manifest. Wisdom, love, tenderness of affection are palpable in them. Still, they are not worshipped as the images of the Lord. Instead of serving the people full of consciousness, instead of seeing Saguna God in them, God is seen in an inanimate stone. To see God in a stone is in a sense the height of Nirguna. It is easier to see God in the saints, in the parents, in the neighbors who are seen to possess wisdom, love or altruism. It is far more difficult to see God in a stone. Still we worship the stone image. Is it not verily the form of Nirguna worship? On the other hand, one feels that if God is not to be imagined in a stone, where else can we find Him? A stone is the most appropriate thing to become God's symbol, as it is unruffled, unmoved, peaceful, undisturbed under any condition. Our parents, neighbors and the people in general, all these have their weaknesses. You are bound to find some weakness or fault in them, and serving them in a sense is more difficult than worshipping a stone. To sum up, Saguna and Nirguna are complementary to each other. Saguna is easier than Nirguna, but in another sense, Nirguna is easy and Saguna is difficult. Both lead us to the same end. Saguna state of karma and Nirguna state of sannyasi are one and the same. The Lord therefore faced the same predicament when He was asked whether yoga was better or sannyas. Finally, He replied on the basis of comparative easiness. Otherwise, there is no difference between yoga and sannyasa or between Saguna and Nirguna. The Lord say in the end, O Arjuna, you may prefer Saguna or Nirguna, but be a Bhakta. Do not remain untouched by devotion. Then the Lord described the characteristics. Because even in the Saguna form of worship, just now when Vinobaji explains that we may find some faults in the person whom we revere, difference of opinion, I don't say faults. We may find some differences. Until we reach that stage, Even the Maryada Purushottam Lord Rama, his worship, there were some questions, about the way in which he acted. Our puny intellect cannot gauge certain things. So we may find it is not in agreement. Even Lord Krishna's certain acts, when he violates his own laws. When we reach that stage, probably we can say, when we transcend everything, all the limitations, we can see, we'll be able to enjoy it. But at our level, even we may find, there may be so many things which at the moment we may not be able to agree. So it is better to start with Saguna and then move to the Nirguna aspect. And in Papa's life, it is very, 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 very clear. At no point he brings out this dry philosophy, though he is a Vedantin. When we go through Atma Bodh, Tattva Bodh, Vivek Chudamani, Kenopanishad, almost in the same language it is there. But at the same time, we don't feel the dryness. Because every time he will bring this surrender to the Lord. Ramdas and Ram. That gives us a cushioning. That frees us from all tension. Because Ram is a part of Ramdas. Ramdas is a part of Ram. And he says this word also. Without Ramdas you cannot. Without you Ramdas cannot. That much the interlink. So it is two in one. So we keep on reflecting on these aspects. Probably in our mind there won't be any confusion about Saguna and Nirguna. At the time of removing his ochre to the white, he made this remark. At this moment it strikes to us. Because anything that is limited, Papa was unable to contain. So when he was asked by some devotees, why did he divest his Garuva cloth? He says, as for Ramdas in the later stages, finding that the orange-colored cloth was proving to be an obstacle to his attainment of an all-comprehensive spiritual perfection. What is that spiritual all-comprehensive? He says, stage of Karma Yoga as distinguished by the Gita from Karma Sannyas. God divested him of the Garuva and gave him the white cloth in return, so that, now you see, he can move freely amongst all people, from the highest to the lowest, without either feeling a sense of superiority himself or causing them the least embarrassment. He can now, like a child, freely move and mingle with all his friends and devotees of either sex. This is the privileges he prizes more than the greatest honor or reverence he might receive from the world. Karma Sannyas and Karma Yoga. So he prefers Karma Yoga. Because in there, everything is, there is nobody left out. So the Nirguna form of Bhakti encompasses the entire creation. So in letter and spirit, when it became a reality in his life, he was finding it difficult to wear something that unknowingly or indirectly makes him to stand out separately from the rest of the others. Not that he had disrespect for ochre robes or sannyas as traditionally understood. This should be very clearly understood. When the Parabhakti state, he couldn't limit any of these things to any particular thing. So there is a all-comprehensive, that the word is that. Attainment of an all-comprehensive spiritual perfection. In Mataji's case, she never felt it, She never changed. Because when we change it, we stand out from the rest. And it will have its own impact on the people with whom we mingle. There is a barrier. Probably Papa will not have that barrier in his mind, but others will have. And when he knows others will have, he also feels the same. Because his identification with everybody is so complete. His Ram is there in everybody. Whether he is a Grihastha, whether he is a sannyasi, whether he is a atheist. In our language, if he is an out and out materialist, his Ram is there everywhere. When that be the case, where is the need to separate? So Saguna, we started with the mind, It is all the mind. So the mind, for the graduation of the mind, for the purification of the mind, for the evolution of the mind, to getting it fixed on the higher realms. Saguna Bhakti, Nirguna Bhakti, both are recommended. It is the mind that will say that. And the mind will tutor us and take us from stage to stage. All these are possible because the mind is given to us. Different stages.